I'm Greg Gornert, Vice President and Senior Investment Advisor at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management and Gornert Wealth Management. As part of my ongoing Business Toolkit series for entrepreneurs, I wanted to do a special series focusing on the extraordinary challenges and business leaders are facing as our economy reopens from the COVID-19 lockdown. Over the coming months, I'll be joined by business experts to outline practical solutions to help you and your business navigate our way back. Today, in our first installment, I'm joined by a guest who's had multiple senior leadership positions with top global companies such as PowerTech Labs, a division of BC Hydro, Pirelli Cables, and Ford. He's also led the successful turnaround of two global companies in manufacturing and engineering, returning both to significant profitability and strong working capital positions. He's a media commentator, a columnist, and founder and president of the Percy Group, which is a leading business advisory firm, and author of the book, The 1% Solution. Welcome, Eamonn Percy.
Hello, Greg. It's great to be with you today.
Great to see you. Now, thank you for joining us. I hate using the term extraordinary times, but I mean, these really are. I don't think there's ever been a time when we've actually had the economy shut down. And I know when I talk to my business owner clients, how do you restart this and how you approach it? Now, I know you've thought deeply about this, so I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So can you walk me through some of the concrete steps that you've seen and you've been advising your clients to put into place?
Sure, Greg. I'm absolutely happy to do that. And you are 100% correct. This really is an extraordinary time. Normally, you'll see a recession in one sector of the economy, where you might even see a downturn in one geographic area. What we've seen now is downturns in multiple sectors, multiple geographic areas, and for prolonged periods of time as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and then resultant lockdown, compounded by the changes we're seeing in the financial market as well. But specifically, it's a very, very unusual time. And while we've had crisis in the past, this really is at a different level completely. So what I do is I'm walking my individual clients through very specific process right now, and I'm happy to talk about some of those strategies. Mm-hmm. Before I dive into that, Greg, I want to point out, though, that in a crisis, it's important that business leaders remember the 4 stages of a crisis. Number 1 is acknowledge that you're actually in the crisis. So that's immediate. That's what happens right away.
Right.
And that's where you got to get the facts. You don't overreact. You know there's a problem. And we're past that now. That was a few months ago. Then you assess the crisis. Mm-hmm. The second stage, and that's largely past us. And now we're into the stages that we're going to talk about today is how do you respond and reopen? And then ultimately, what do you do to grow and thrive? So I want to talk today about some of the very specific things that are doing both of those, responding and thriving. It's important to remember that these crises, while this is specific and significant, they do come and go. Mm-hmm. Because I've learned in my career, having gone through Black Monday, 9/11, .com, and I'm sure you can share some of those experiences as well. It's very dire at the time, but you have to keep that one eye on the opportunity as well.
And that's a key point, because I know that what differentiates successful entrepreneurs and business owners from the ones that face increased challenges, some of them, they freeze. Mm-hmm. They get caught up with the emotion. They watch TV way too much or the news way too much, and they take their eye off the ball and they become overwhelmed by the crisis and what's happening, rather than being the leadership position, which we are all thrust upon. Because when events like this happen, in my opinion, that's when it's really important for the leaders, company leaders, corporate leaders, political leaders, to step up. I mean, your leaders in your family, your leaders for your employees, your leaders of your company. A lot of that responsibility comes down to you. And you've got to, in my opinion, you've got to really tune out all that noise that's out there, because people are looking at you for answers, and you better find some.
Yeah.
So
could not agree with you more, Greg. And I like the way you frame it out. It's leadership at home, the community, and work as well. And it's not only the the boss or the manager who's the leader. Everybody has a responsibility and an opportunity, quite frankly, to lead at times like this.
Absolutely.
Because people are afraid, they're anxious, they're worried about work, they're worried about what's going on, they're worried about their friends and their family and being healthy. So that really is the number one tactic that I encourage my clients to follow, and that is to start with leading, and specifically leading with values. Now, I know we'll get in some more specifics about cash and credit and other things, and it may seem high level, but I cannot overemphasize that, because this is a scary time for people. And people are looking forward for somebody that's going to guide them out of this time. And they want it done with values. So what I say to my clients is, you've been talking for a long time about your values. You've got the mission statement on the wall. You've got the beliefs, and now is actually time to do it. And when that happens, sometimes, unfortunately, those are the first to go. When, quite frankly, those should be the first to come in. We should say, now, how are we going to treat our customers and our people and our partners at this time? And that's your point. It's coming back to leaders. So that's the very first thing that they need to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you brought up a good point about mission statements. I know when I went to business school and economic school, sometimes you see the mission statements that are put up, and sometimes for, in my opinion, more unsuccessful company, the mission statement is just something you do because you have to do it as part of your business plan, versus something that really reflects your core values and who you are. And I really think that this is the time when it's time to separate the wheat from the chaff, and the people whose mission statement and core values align together. I mean, that's when the true leaders show. And your point is so true, because it's the employees are leaders, the people that you lean on, the people around you, because everything is an organic organism as part of your business and the community together. And that's what I really think that has to be focused on here. And I'm so glad you brought that up about values, because so many in a row we talk about values. And this was the opportunity to actually show and put those values into practice, and maybe separate who is talking a good game and maybe who wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and people are very authentic. They're basically walking X-ray machines. And
Yeah.
if you pretend to follow the values, especially right now when there's a heightened level of concern and sensitivity around the difficulties in the economy, people will see that right away. So this is not the time to fake it. You really must embrace the values. You should be starting your meetings with understanding what are the values. When you talk to your customers, employees, you and your management team should be going back to that. If you've got a very difficult decision to be making, you shouldn't go to the pros and cons right away financially. The first lens should be, how does this fit in with our values? You still need to make good financial decisions, no question, but it should start with leadership and values. Mm-hmm. The second thing I encourage companies to do right now is to really over-communicate. Mm-hmm. A good leader should be communicating well at all times, but often in a leadership role, it seems like we're communicating a lot already. But if you look at it from the perspective of your customers, your employees, your partners, your suppliers who are part of your partnership, when things are difficult, a lot of changes taking place, literally day by day changes, they're very sensitive to gaps in information. And as you've referenced, if you're thinking too much about the news or watching the news, they're doing the same thing as well. So you have an obligation, I believe, to step in and over-communicate to your employees. And that may mean sending an email 2 or 3 times a week rather than once a week. Maybe you have an all-hands meeting, or maybe you're having daily huddles, or some way you're constantly communicating with the employees. If you're in a physical environment, which may or may not be possible now, you're walking around a bit more. But you're really going above and beyond, and I would encourage leaders to be very authentic at times like this, whether you've got a small business of a handful of people or a much larger business. Walk around, talk to people, help them understand, and help alleviate their fears and anxieties. That would be the second thing that I would encourage people to do, is to really over-communicate at times like this.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. So we've got values, we've got, communicate, but to over-communicate, and that's a key thing. And that's been a difficult challenge to this environment, because we've all been isolated to a certain extent. Many people have taken to Zoom, to social media, to take into other alternative methods. But I do agree. At times of crisis, that's when people really want to know and understand. They might not like what's going on, but they need to know that there's a steady hand there, that the decisions are being made for a reason, and this is what we're going to do. This is what the challenges we face, and we're going to have to walk our way through. But that's such a good point that you brought up. So now we've talked about your two major points. What's your third on your list?
So the third one is, let's get into the tactics here. This is a time of extraordinary change, and it's a time to minimize your risks, understand what they are, and then mitigate them going forward. I'm going to talk about two specifically. We can go into a bit more detail if you'd like, but I think these two are really important right now. The first one is because we're seeing a global pandemic and lockdown, and we're seeing changes in the global market, it's important to really understand the impact on your supply chain. Really impact. And it's not just for manufacturing companies or durable goods companies. Any company that's dependent on an integrated supply chain of product and service providers around the world, that is not only being disrupted right now, but quite frankly, Greg, they are being transformed as we speak. I certainly believe that long term, we're going to see a resurgence of manufacturing in North America, basically mostly in and around very critical items. But in the short term, we're going to see supply chains morphing and changing. So that's number one, really understand what that's all about. The second one is in and around cash and credit. Often situations like this, and again, folks can go back to history and take a good look at it themselves. Not all cases, and often it's related to a sector, but as a downturn rolls out, it does tend to impact the credit markets. Now, we've been fortunate; we haven't seen that significantly yet. But you've asked me today to talk about the practical things that I do with my clients. When I'm on the phone with them every day is understand where are you from a cash perspective, what is your cash flow, what is your cash balance, and what's your credit situation. So it's a matter of making sure that I help them stay prepared, just because who knows what 3 months or 6 months down the road may bring.
Exactly.
So if we can do that, and I'll give you some specifics on what that may look like, I believe that companies should be looking at their cash balance, again, depending on the size of the company and a lot of other factors. At least every week, you should be looking at your cash balance and even cash flow over the course of that week. And if you're in a tighter cash situation, you should be looking at it daily. If you are drawing on credit or you have multiple credit facilities, everything from capital leases to lines of credit to mortgages on property, you should be looking at all of that credit right now, looking at the various covenants involved, seeing where you are, and then you should be starting to speak with your bank, make sure that you're continue to stay in good stead with the bank, and understand that if the situation changes, they have your information and you're working closely with them. So both of those are the two big areas of risk mitigation right now, very tactically, ensuring you got good supply chain in place and also ensuring that your credit and cash positions are strong.
Are you advising any of your corporate clients to draw their lines of credit down fully now, just in case things change?
100%.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Boeing did that in the States right away. Like make sure, and that's just an example, but yeah, take it down. Because my thinking is anything that gives you flexibility over day, that puts you more in control than otherwise.
And for your audience, what that means is that if there's a credit facility that's available today that hasn't been fully tapped into, you can draw out. Now, there's certain conditions based on how the credit is guaranteed. But basically, if you have room and you can draw down portions of it now while it's available, even if you just park it, quite frankly.
Okay.
But the basic idea is yes, this is a time to do it. I hope we don't have a credit problem, Greg. There's not imminent signs of it. The Canadian banks are doing all the right things, putting the loan loss provisions in place. So I'm comfortable. But from an advisory perspective, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't help my clients understand to at least be prepared for it.
Right, and this is the time to make sure that you've got that storm shelter and make sure that it's well provisioned with stocks. And you hope you never have to use it, but it's maybe the example of we saw people going to Costco and loading up with food at the beginning of this. For the most part, they didn't need it, and you hope you never do. But I'm thinking your point of view is you want to make sure that you've got all those things in place, so that just in case you need it, it's there, and you don't want to get to a point where you go for something and you count it on for some reason and find it isn't there, because then my understanding would be you'd be in real trouble at that point.
Yeah, it's great analogy. The Costco analogy. Another analogy I like is you're going on a trip, so you go out, you check the air in the car, and you do all these things you wouldn't normally do.
Exactly. Yeah.
You find about a half a dozen things that should have been done.
That's a good point. Yeah, you check the oil. Oh, the air filter.
Right. You were driving around town. I should have done that anyways. So now's the time to do it. And that's what happens when you go through this type of planning process. In actual fact, it leads me to my next point. And I do this regularly with my clients, so we're in good shape. As part of the process that I work with them, every year we do a scenario planning process. Now, the last number of years, it's like the scenario is the world's getting better and revenue is going up and everything is terrific.
Right.
But when we go through it, I encourage them to look at downside as well and various risks. And just that process in the past has really helped them prepare for today. So for your audience, companies that may not be going through that or even familiar with it, I would encourage that would be the next reopening strategy that they can take today. Pull out a spreadsheet, even a smaller business. It's pretty straightforward. Build a very small, I would just start with an income statement. You doesn't have to get too wild. Mm-hmm. Lay out what would happen if revenue does go down 30%, or if your revenue projections don't go up. What happens if expenses changes or your insurance goes up? Just change some of the variables. And what you end up seeing is where is the stress in the organization. Mm-hmm. In some cases, Greg, it may actually be worse, unfortunately, than you thought. Other cases, it may not actually be that bad, or better than you thought, I should say, more precisely. But that scenario planning process is very much related to understanding your cash and credit position. And it's something very specific and tangible that companies could do. I mean, they could do within an hour after listening to this Zoom call today. They could do it very quickly. But it's a matter of understanding and what the world may look like and taking those tangible steps to improve it.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. And once again, the theme that you bring on is being proactive and being in control, because there's a lot of variables you can't control, but everything you've stated so far here have been things that are well within your control. It has nothing to do with the rest of the world. Your values are your values. Communication over communication, that's something that's outgoing, not ingoing. Tactics are totally in your control, and prepare for downside. I mean, those are something that I know we should be doing anyways. And it's like I was talking to a dentist friend of mine the other day, and it's like one of the things that get lied about the most. Yeah, of course I floss my teeth every day. It's something we all talk about. But we don't always do. And this is a time definitely to revisit those structures that you've already put in place. And that's when that structure and that infrastructure of your business that you worked hard on really has to come to the fore. That you start relying on those systems you've already put in place. Hopefully, when things have been better.
Well, we started this conversation talking about leadership and values, and it plays very much into it because I know in my experience, and I'm sure you've had similar experiences. Leaders that are in control, to your point, leaders that are taking action, and leaders that do have a firm grip on the tiller going forward, they exude a different type of confidence in the organization. And they may not feel it, but everyone around them does. If you're feeling out of control because you're not taking these simple steps, that will also come through to the people that are around you. So one of the reasons I recommend these, they're not only good strategies, quite frankly, but it changes the focus of the leader from not being in control, not sure what they can do, to doing something that's important, but that also gives their team and their employees and their customers confidence that they're going to get through it. And that really helps everybody.
Yeah, and I'm going to paraphrase something that it's an old saying, but that calm waters make poor sailors, and we didn't want to be in this situation. And for you, I know for myself, I mean, this is not the first time that we've gone through a crisis. It won't be the last, unfortunately, but that's just the way the world works. And my experience in running a business myself, but also dealing with other business owners, the big thing that I notice is that when a crisis hits, the resilient business owners and successful entrepreneurs, they work harder. They're there and they're working like, they're up there early, working straight through. And the ones that tend to flounder are the ones that, as I was saying, get caught up with the moment, and it's hard to do because it's easy to get caught up with what you're seeing. But our job as leaders, it's so important that we actually, at those times when it calls for leadership, that we step up there and start figuring it out.
Yeah, and the term leader gets bandied about so easily, but it's crazy. Many people that talk about being leaders are really managing, and
Exactly.
you don't even have to be on the hierarchy to be a leader. In actual fact, I encourage everybody, entrepreneurs, employees, everybody, to think and act like a leader. But
Exactly.
right now more than ever, it's critical. And if you're doing that within your own company and people see that,
Yeah.
they're going to pick up their game as well too.
Oh
They're
yeah,
going
absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to say, yeah, Greg, Greg's doing this, he's continuing with that, and Eamonn's doing this, and so's doing that. They're like, okay, if they can do that, I can do it. And
Exactly. There's normalcy. They see it, and what every leader needs is a follower, and you need to. I mean, you can't be a leader without followers. And you have to start with one, which means you have to have other people who believe in what you're doing, and they instill confidence in other people behind them. So your point about everyone being leaders is so well said.
yeah, and just before we move on, Greg, I get excited about this stuff, so I'm going to try to limit myself.
Yeah, me too.
When you made the point about being a leader in the home, and right now I think that's worth repeating. We've been in a lockdown situation. Some people in different parts of the country have been locked down for a number of months. There's some discomfort and stress that can build up on the home front. And I believe as a leader in the workplace, you have an obligation to help people be able to be their best so they can go home and lead at home as well too.
Hmm.
Well, and that's different. I wouldn't have been saying that to the same degree a year ago, but I think it's really important now. And think about how you can magnify your impact as you're going through and reopening. So people, they talk about the PPE and the hand sanitizers. That's all important, no question. But at the end of the day, you're creating an environment for people that they can go home and help their family as well. That's critically important.
Well, exactly, because as you empower people, by showing your leadership, not only do you empower yourself, but you show them how to empower themselves going forward, and it's exponential. It's like a reverse virus, right? It's a good virus where it spreads from one person to another. Confidence is so important to have, and if you have people around that exude confidence, they're going to tend to do better in whatever in the family life, the personal life, the work life, in life itself. And I guess that's why I keep coming back to this leadership, because I'm with you. I feel the word leadership gets bandied about way too much. But I think it's only at these moments when we abjectly see first what true leadership is, and actually we see a lot of leadership which is not true leadership.
Yeah. So it's a terrific opportunity for people to exhibit that behavior and make it part of their life. I'll move on to the next point.
Yeah.
The next important, again, these are all strategies that I'm advising today. So this is not theory, this is practice.
Yeah.
So I'm advising companies today, if you don't have a strategy or a strategic plan, and I'm not talking about a big document, this is a good time to dust off your strategy or to build one. And short process, but what's happening is the world is changing on multiple levels, and it is creating incredible transformation and opportunity that we don't have time to go into today in great detail. But I think it's worth taking a few hours, a half day, a portion of your day, if you're a bigger company with your leadership team, smaller company, maybe with partners, and to think through what are the strategic elements of my business now and how have they changed and what do I need to do differently? Mm-hmm. If you're doing exactly the same thing now that you were doing 6 months ago at all levels, there's probably a problem. Right. You should be looking at it, and when I say a problem, it means you may not actually manifest the opportunity that's in front of you.
And I'm glad you brought that up about the opportunity, because through this, I think there's a tremendous opportunity out there, and you don't want to pass that by.
And it's happening right now. This is not an opportunity that's coming in fourth quarter. This is today, what's taking place today. And companies that don't take that time to think even for a few hours, okay, what do I do differently? Is there a new market I should be going after? Is there a new way I can deliver my products and services? We're actually seeing a lot of that already at the retail level for restaurants as one example, but there's many, many others. Is there a different business model that I should be adopting? Can I tweak my current business model? Is there a different way I deliver my products and services? Do I even have the right ones? Right. Those questions that should be thought through in a compelling way, and not just assume that it's going to be the same, but take the time to think through it. And that's what I'm doing again today with my client companies.
Right. So we've talked about opportunity, we've talked about values. What's the next step on tactics? And what the concrete advice, what's the biggest concern when you're sitting down with your corporate clients? What's the top of mind concern that comes up?
The biggest concern that they have is from a sales and customer perspective. Mm-hmm. That's number one. And then related to that is the employees and the cash or credit position. So
the ones that are being most successful at dealing with the sales side and the employee side, what are best practices that you're seeing?
Yeah, for the sales side, they're the ones where the CEOs are spending the majority of their day on revenue.
Right.
And I'm talking more than 50%, Greg. If you're the man or woman at the top of an organization, you should be spending most of your day on revenue, not just talking about most of it. What they're also doing is they're working very closely with their customers. So they're increasing the amount of contact with the customers. Right. They're engaging the customers more. They're leveraging technology platforms to engage the customers and understand what the customers' needs are. They're reviewing pricing to make sure that they have the pricing right, and if they can tweak it without impacting the margins too much. They're making sure that they align the sales process with their operational delivery of the product or service as well. So they're doing multiple things on the customer side. On the cash and credit, we've covered off a number of those already. And then on the people side, what they're really doing is they're making it, in addition to communications, the leadership, they're making it they're accommodating the new work environment for people. So if people need or want to work from home, they're making it easy to do. And we can talk about the specifics. That's one very specific thing that they're doing. They're giving people more certainty and opportunity in the workforce, because the job market is not as strong as it was a year ago, and people had options to move around. Mm-hmm. Now today, you want to keep your employees loyal and committed to you, so you can do that through cross-training, you can do that through higher levels of engagement. They're making it easy, they're making it safe, of course, as we talked with, given the risk of COVID. So they're taking those specific actions on both the customer and the employee side over the short term. Now, long term, the outside of the leadership point that we talked about earlier, probably the most important tactic I can recommend to companies right now, long term, is you should be looking, as a business owner or an entrepreneur, you should be looking now for exponential growth opportunities. This is the time to do it. This is not the time to be in an incremental world. This is the time to be in an exponential world. And it may not last. It may last a year. maybe 18 months. Now, what do I mean by exponential growth opportunities? That means that what are those activities, and we can talk about some of them, opportunities, actions that you can take that will move your business significantly forward. For instance, is this the time, if you have access to capital and cash, to look at an M&A growth approach? Can you buy other companies? Are there people that are not as strong in this market that are competitors? And if you've really managed your cash well, that you have an opportunity to buy them. That's one. Can you form strategic alliances? So a number of companies now, they're being impacted, and they may be strong in one area, but they're weak in the other. The area that you're strong in, they happen to be weak. And you can form a strategic alliance to help both companies. That's what I mean by exponential growth opportunities. Avoid the risk, if you're a business owner, of coming into tunnel vision where you're just thinking about your business. Take the time to step back and to think, where is the big opportunity and how do I take advantage of it?
Now, that's such a good point, from moving from survival mode to looking at the overall lay of the land and what the opportunity is going for, because there are opportunities out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we talked about our shared history on 1987 and some of these other.
Yes.
And even as 2008, which is quite a recent one. I mean, it was quite dire at the time. But
I do remember.
Yeah, but you start looking back and it's like, wow, that changed fast. And, 5 years went by or 10 years went by and the world improved. So quite significantly. So that's taken me a bit of time, Greg, to be able to understand and see that. And through my business career, I've been fortunate to now see that these crises have strong elements of opportunity. Now, you have to be thoughtful. You have to be careful. You have to think it through. You have to know the facts and manage those facts well, but not be shy. This is not the time to be shy as a business owner or an entrepreneur. Do both the defensive strategies, which we talked about, and then go on offense with that strategy where it makes sense for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of times the most successful business owners I've seen are the ones who prepare for events like this, because you're never going to prepare for them, but they make sure that their house is in order, so they're ready, so that when an opportunity does come up like this, they're in a position to be able to move on the right opportunity, because there are obviously some distressed situations there that you can be looking at. Now, I just, as we step back, you touched upon employees working from home. Now, that's a new dynamic too. How do you approach that? Allowing employees to work further from home. There's obviously not the direct supervision that you would have. How is that dynamic changing things a little bit, and in your mind?
Yeah, so I can't tell you how many times I've talked to business owners that have sizable businesses that say, this Zoom meetings over the last 3 months was great. I think I have half my employees work from home, lower the cost of the office and the overhead. Yeah. And the employees are thinking, this is not bad. I get a little bit more flexibility if I'm at home and I don't have the commute. So I'm, and I know there's been a lot has been talked about that, but I'm seeing that as a significant emerging trend. So what do I mean specifically? To answer your question, I'm encouraging my clients to approach that area with intention. So don't sort of leave it to chance and maybe a person here and a person there. Actually think it down and come up with an approach, maybe come up with a policy on what you're going to do. People that want to work from home, enable it. You'll have to upgrade your technology. Set around some parameters, but understand and approach it with clear intention that there's a big potential benefit for the employees, quite frankly, again, depending on the nature of the company, and a potential benefit for the employer, and that they should approach it with clear intention, give people clarity, give them lists of what they can and cannot be done within the realm of working from home, and any other parameters that may impact them, but to do it with intention.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, that's good advice walking through. So we've gone through some of the 5 tactics that you talked about now. What else is top of mind for you right now as we get ready to wrap things up here?
Yeah, I'd say the most important element of what I'm seeing is that I started the conversation talking about those 4 stages of a crisis: the acknowledgement, the assessment, the response, and then the growth.
Yeah.
And the first two are short term. So
Yeah.
now we went into a different phase. We're moving into something that's a bit more long term. And I'm seeing companies are starting to get into the groove of what they need to do. But I would encourage them not to become complacent, really to think about innovation and how you change going forward. So I actually believe that we're moving into a world of one area focused on durables, back to basics, the necessities of life.
Mm-hmm.
We go into we'll call it, I don't want to say depression, but we'll say a strained economic time
Yeah.
for the short term, because we really don't know for sure what it's going to look like. But I think we should prepare that it may be difficult for a period of time.
Yeah.
But actually look at those periods as well, Greg. What tends to happen is they tend to be periods of incredible innovation.
Yes.
So yes, focus on the durable, the delivery. But what I'm also encouraging my client companies, and many of them are in primary industries, I'm encouraging them to look at innovation and to use this time to reposition yourself to take advantage of a more innovative environment moving forward. And that's part of the strategic planning exercise that we go through. So it's a challenging time. I don't want to mitigate that in any way, for sure. But it's also a time to keep one eye on the opportunity, what that might look like going forward. At the main time, taking care of your customers, take care of the revenue, and most importantly, take care of the employees by leading with good values.
No, I mean, that's such good advice there. Now, walking through, we've seen how this has happened, and we really, I do think we're getting past the shock point of view, but you know, some of the things that I've noticed right now is that because of the government programs that have been put in place, I think the effects of this crisis haven't really been felt. We're kind of in a stasis here as we get into October, because there's going to be some number of government programs are going to stop in October, and I think that's when we're going to start seeing the real effects of what's happened here. Do you have any thoughts on the government programs and how companies have successfully integrated those into their businesses?
Yeah, most of the companies that I'm working with have done a great job, and I think the programs that are available, both for the employees and for the company, have had their desired effect. And I think the government acted quickly and they acted promptly, and they were able to help people at a time of need. So I think that was really great. But as you point out, they will come to an end eventually. And now is the time, if you're an employer, to plan for what that might look like. And most of the focus of the companies that I'm working with is on the cash and credit planning to make sure that if the situation does deteriorate into the fall, Q3 and Q4, and you look at the unemployment numbers and some of the risk indicators, it could be quite significant, that this is the time to prepare for it and to mitigate any impact that you might have. But I think the government has actually done a solid job in transitioning and helping people transition during a very difficult time.
Perfect. Well, hey, thank you, Eamonn. So great advice, and I really thank you for joining us. Eamonn Percy of the Percy Group, thank you very much.